What game do you think this is? This looks like an early Madden game, doesn't it? But it's not. And you'll never guess which company made it. So this game is MVP Football by Capcom. This is a 1993 Super Nintendo game that honestly I had never heard of until just the other day. And that's right, Capcom made a football game. They made one, and it's surprisingly obscure. It's kind of puzzling that this game is so obscure. It has the official NFL license. Sure, it might not have a season mode, but Madden didn't have a season mode back in those days either. While it might not be a well-known game, this one actually plays pretty well. It's got some weather effects which actually look pretty nice. Overall, it's a pretty solid game for a Super Nintendo football game from 1993. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the fact that Capcom made an NFL football game still really surprises me. I mean, Capcom was known for making all sorts of games except for sports games, right? Now, if you're my age, this game is the first thing you think of when you hear the name Capcom. We used to play the Mega Man games all the time. Now, some of you might be more familiar with Ghosts and Goblins. This is one of those legendary NES hard games. And then, of course, there was Street Fighter II, which was absolutely huge. I remember seeing huge lines at the arcades to play this one. So when Capcom had all of this success making fighting games and platformers, why even bother with a sports game? And honestly, I really don't know the answer to that question. In fact, finding even basic information out about MVP Football is almost impossible. I do know, however, that it's not the only sports game that Capcom made back in those days. I think this arcade game called Capcom's Baseball was the first. So this was a Japan-only release in 1989, and it's pretty good.
Right.
It's basically a clone of Pro-Yaku World Stadium, which is the arcade version of Family Style.
Hey.
The best part is that you can create your own player when you start playing. Everything else here is pretty standard. There is nothing too special about it. So the only really interesting thing about the game is that there is a team with players all named after different Capcom video games. And of course, that's a total ripoff of what Namco did with Family Stadium and its derivatives. But it's still a pretty good game to play. So there's also this game called Pro-Yaku Sachujin Jiken on the Famicom. That translates to Professional Baseball Murder Investigation. But it's an RPG, it's not really a sports game. Frankly, if you want to play a Capcom RPG on the Famicom, you should play Destiny of an Emperor instead. At least that game has some action. But yeah, we're getting off the subject now. Now, there were two other Capcom sports releases on Super Nintendo. Both of these games came out about 6 months after MVP Football was released, and really, that's about it. Capcom Soccer Shootout is a pretty solid soccer game. This was one of a whole ton of soccer games released in 1994, the time of the World Cup in the United States. It's not the best soccer game on the platform, but it still is a lot of fun. Around the same time, Mega Man Soccer was released. Mega Man Soccer is not much of a soccer game, but it's still kind of fun. It's clearly a sports game, though it doesn't really flow like a sports game. It's kind of strange that way. The graphics are less than great. You've got to remember that Mega Man X had come out maybe 2 months before that game. And Mega Man X looks so much better that it feels like it was made for a different system. Anyway, like I said, that's pretty much it, at least as far as I can tell. But, before we start digging into MVP football, there is one other thing I really do need to talk about. This game received no advertising and basically no media coverage, and that's the part that I can't figure out. Okay, I've read through every single issue of every US video game magazine from late 1993 and early 1994. I haven't been able to find a review of this game at all. In fact, I can't even find an advertisement for this game, which is totally bizarre. So it's not that we don't know when this game came out, we do. It came out in October 1993. It's just that nobody seems to have cared. And this is at a time when football games were really selling well, and there were ads for these games like all over the place. This was the Madden effect, and everybody wanted to get in on that market. The closest I could find to an advertisement was this brief mention in the Pack Watch section of the October 1993 issue of Nintendo Power. The November 1993 issue included this special section on sports games for the Super NES, and you would think that they would at least mention this game there, right? So Nintendo Power stuck this section in to counter the prevailing opinion at the time that the Sega Genesis was the better system because it had the better sports games. And that's really the reason why the lack of any mention at all of Capcom's NFL football game that just came out is so bizarre. So this section talks about Wicked 18 Golf and Dig and Spike V-Ball, for crying out loud. There was also a brief mention of Tecmo Super Bowl on the Super Nintendo, but the only other sports games mentioned were EA games, and that was it. Anyway, it really drives me nuts. MVP football might look generic, but it was a heck of a lot better than Madden 93 on the Super NES. And I think that there is an argument that it was a better game than Madden 94 as well. When you look at MVP football, the first thing that stands out is how smoothly this game plays. It looks right and it feels right, and you don't have any screen stuttering. This is a huge contrast to Madden 93 on the Super Nintendo, which feels like it's just broken. And don't even get me started with the original John Madden football on Super Nintendo. That game should have never been released. It's not perfect, that's the thing. In fact, MVP football's graphics really could have used a bit of help from the team that worked on Mega Man X. Mega Man X was a huge success in large part because of how it took advantage of the Super Nintendo's graphical capabilities. MVP football feels kind of awkward at times, such as when there are possession changes. Compare that to how Madden 94 uses Mode 7 graphics for possession changes. Having said that, I actually think MVP football looks a little bit better overall. Actually, to tell you the truth, the sprites really remind me a lot of John Madden Duo, for the TurboGrafx CD that came out like a month or two before this. In fact, they look so similar that I wonder how this team came up with those visual assets, or if there was some sort of relationship between the teams, or if they were stolen. So this is John Madden Duo, which came out right around the same time. And here's MVP football. As you can see, there are quite a few similarities. I do think MVP football has slightly smoother graphics, but the gameplay in Madden Duo feels better to me. Anyway, it's really obvious that MVP football was just another John Madden football clone. The similarities here are just totally crazy. The vertical perspective makes it obvious that this was designed to be a Madden-like game. The play calling screen is very similar. You've got to wait for substitutes to come on before you can call your play, which is really annoying. And you've got to be really fast with your calls on defense when the computer is in the hurry-up offense. There is one difference that's pretty major though. The control scheme is a lot different than what you're used to. You push the R button to snap the ball. That's right, the R button. I'm really not sure why they thought this was a good idea. You can push X, Y, or A to highlight an eligible receiver before the snap, which does nothing. So it's not like the later football games, where you push a button to see your play call. This is back in those days where you had to memorize your play call when you made it because you couldn't look at it again. We used to have it really rough back in those days, didn't we? Anyway, the way that you pass in this game is really strange. So you're supposed to push X, Y, or A right after the snap to choose your receiver, and then you push either L or R to pass. L is a lob pass and R is a rifle pass. In my experience, neither pass type really works all that well. But then again, passing in Madden 94 is even more frustrating. Running is also really frustrating in this game since there's no turbo button at all, or if there is, I haven't been able to find it. You just run at the same speed no matter what you do. I had absolutely no success at all with inside runs. And outside runs didn't really work that well either. In theory, you should be able to push Y or A to break tackles. In reality, you can't do anything. And then there are a few of those Nintendo football things that really drive me nuts. I was trying to figure out how to down the ball in the end zone after this kickoff, and I wound up giving up a safety, which was ridiculous. So it turns out that L and R are the buttons to take a knee, and you can use them at any time. Kicking in this game is also pretty strange. You push R to open up the screen, and then you have to push B at the right time to choose your kick power. Usually I have to push B about 3 times to get it to register. But these are really the only issues that I have with this game. I mean, the game isn't perfect, sure, but I honestly think that this was a strong competitor with Madden 94, and I'm 100% convinced that it's a better game than Madden 93 on Super Nintendo. So why doesn't anybody ever talk about this game? Overall, this game is actually pretty solid and it plays pretty well. There's no season mode, which really sucks. Remember that Madden 94 was the first game to have a battery back season mode in the Madden series. However, you do have these special scenarios that you can play through. But you need a passcode to get past the first one. I think the idea here was that you'd play these along, you unlock the scenarios one by one, slowly or something. It's kind of a modern concept, I guess, but it really doesn't work all that well here because everything's protected by the passcode. Anyway, in this first scenario, you are the Chicago Bears and you're down by 4 against the Jets. The game tells you that the Jets have already had a bunch of goal line stands. I'm absolutely certain that this scenario refers to this famous 1991 Monday Night Football game at Soldier Field. So the thing about that Monday Night Football game is that kind of helped hasten the end of video reviews since the reviews took so long and they were so unpopular. I mean, the game was over, the players were in the clubhouse, and then they had to come back out afterwards because the ball was on the 1-yard line and it wasn't a touchdown or whatever. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but honestly, I really wish the replay would go away again. Well, overall, MVP Football is a surprisingly solid game. It might not be flashy and it doesn't have the names of famous players or coaches. But this game seriously should have had more attention back in 1993. It's not really worth much money these days, of course, and I guess it's not really all that rare. But it is a solid game and it is still pretty obscure. Anyway, I recommend giving it a try. So seriously, when I was writing up this review, I did some searches to see what other people said about it. There are almost no reviews of this game anywhere. I mean, even on GameFAQs, nobody decided to review this game. I did find this random streamer, at least on YouTube, who talked about it. Doesn't have a whole bunch of views, but whatever. But even then, I'm not sure if I could tell if he liked the game or not. it's kind of hard to say. My personal opinion on this game is I think it's an above average football game. For its time, I think it's actually excellent because Madden 93 on the Super Nintendo was such a mess. Like, is this better than a whole bunch of other games? Well, maybe not, but I do think it's a solid game that people have forgotten about, and it really needs to get more of the love that it really deserves.